Here we go. And ready or not, here we go. This is Vince Easley, your host, Vinny, for feedback. This is episode 5, Decisions. Standing in the Gap, the Battle of Bunkerville and Malhuer, Oregon occupation. Part 2 next week will be Standing Rock, Sioux, no Dakota access. Stand on the land and on the water. Friday noon Central. rlmRadio.xyz. Law is war, and if you think about justice, and if you think it's about justice, you're naive. In the real world, attorneys and litigants are the combatants. From Mike Arnold, he's an attorney for Ammon Bundy. Cowboys and Indians, life on the range and life on the res. Fenced out or fenced in. And back to the chat here. Turn up the gain and butt. Let me try it. Let me hit pause right here and I will be right back. And here we are. We're back. First chronicled by the famous Western writer Zane Grey in his 1934 novel, The Code of the West, wherein no code, written code actually ever existed. However, the hardy pioneers who lived in the West were bound by these unwritten rules that centered on hospitality, fair play, loyalty, and respect for the land. That's from Legends of America. Stay in your spot. That's one of these cowboy ways of thinking. When you're moving a herd of cattle, it's important to stay in your position. If you're bringing up the drag, continue driving from that spot. If you're flanking the herd on the right side, don't move somewhere else. Jim Scott, who ranches in eastern Montana, says, staying in your spot makes trailing cattle work smoother, shows respect for the other cowboys, and helps everyone know their responsibilities. The reason that's from Western Horseman, by the way. And the reason I read that is knowing where we're at. A little later down here, I'm going to refer to some to Hal. Probably quite a bit, actually. I'll pop back over here to chat just real quick. That's better? That'll work? Okay, super. Thank you. And for some lessons from behind the woodshed. Last week, episode 4 was discrepancies. I titled Hal's broadcast, Stalking Horse, Set Up for the Takedown. He and I both looked at some of the goings-on out there. And up here in the Dakotas and this pipeline. So we did find some discrepancies and wondering why certain things happen, why some people are in some spots and not in the other. Being in the right place is very important. Subject matter, evidence and facts and proper action, and not abandoning the interest or position. Conjecture is not proof. And no man is an island where we have to get along together. And that's where we come to resolving the problem. And not at reflex action. Proof is in the pudding. Hal's been putting it out there for quite a while. Look at last week's broadcast at 8 minutes in. And if you want to find out about some reflex action. But Hal has been consistent. I've gone back and fact checked him. I've looked at what he's said and see how consistent it is. We find ourselves deneutered, disarmed, but we're all people together. Go to 16 minutes and you'll hear that there. So I say that there's a better action, and I'll be a parrot there. So yeah, hard hitting, non-stop. That's what you get from Hal. And I talk some here in my notes here. Third party reveal, the hurt and the harm. That's at 1 hour and 45 minutes in on the same last week. Ringing the bell to get a treat or a beat. Ring the bell. Punch the clock. Same difference. It's kind of insane. Same difference. Don't forget to ask permission. It's a Simon Says kind of world, and you ain't Simon. Simon is a con. There is no Simon, just as spokespersons. Not lines or sides, but a bundled ball of strings, lines, and leaders. And I copied some of that out of conversation in chat here at RLM this last week. And if you said it, you know who you are, so I won't say who you are. But I've got some more stuff later on where, I get ideas just from you folks here, and that's why I'm real proud to be along with the great minds that you'll find out here at Real Liberty Media. So let's see here. I say sue for peace. I think the Indians on or off the reservation are prisoners of war, and we are all on the plantation. Freedom, legal, law, imposition, frivolous, superfluous. So this is a note that's, I think that was at 48 minutes in. And a note to Hal that maybe he could cover perhaps more on this military law, the Lieber Code. Of course, the title's not lost to the examples in the notice, but that's what you'll find from Hal, and perhaps he could take a show and really just walk us through there. From BTW RLM 165, we find land law, owning your own, land patents, real property. And we see the agency stealing the land, subject matter, evading the law, as opposed to avoidance. This gray area, this fiduciary duty and contracts in employment, they employ, they're not employed necessarily, but employed against us. So we look for remedy and cure, UCC, not the AMA or FDA. It's a foreign language, and so do a dict on learn the language. And this is a PG show, by the way. Dictionary. Do a exclamation point DICT at Real Liberty Media if you want to look a word up. So we're all the gypsies by this point in time. Well, by the time it's over, we're all going to be gypsies. And so pack the crystal ball. The future's clear. And with that, I'm going to go back over here and bring you a little of some stuff that I looked at. If my scroller was scroll. Yeah, I think it is. The Cowboy Way and the Cowboy Code. Gene Autry's Cowboy Code was, we'll read here, author Holly George Warren researched the origins of Gene Autry's Cowboy Code and wrote about it in her award-winning book, Public Cowboy No. 1, The Life and Times of Gene Autry. Here's an excerpt. Gene's 10 Commandments began to evolve from such Autry-related publicity as the item 9 Cardinal Rules govern production of all Autry films, which ran in 1949 press book for Riders in the Sky. As early as August 1947, Gene had pronounced Cowboy Code mandates during his Melody Ranch. Uh-oh, my screen just dropped. Hold on, there it is. It's back. Which was referred to in 1948 Life magazine feature, and fan magazines began to publicize the rules they evolved. Tenets promoting an ethical, moral, and patriotic lifestyle had an infinity to those of such youth organizations as the Boy Scouts, which developed similar doctrines. The rules were a natural progression of Gene's philosophy, going back to his Melody Ranch programs and early pictures. From GeneAutry.com. Code of the West. Cowboy ethics has become part of our national conversation as people across the country rediscover the Cowboy Code and make it their own. Let's read some. Live each day with courage. Take pride in your work. Always finish what you start. Do what has to be done. Be tough but fair. When you make a promise, keep it. Ride for the brand. Talk less and say more. Oops. I wonder. Remember that some things aren't for sale. Well, unless you're working for the government. Know where to draw the line. That comes from cowboyethics.org. Here's some I didn't add to. The life of a wrangler. Too many irons in the fire. And I believe I got that from Sockpuck, that he said he had too many irons in the fire. So from Carol Bundy, she shared Doug Knowles' post. And Doug Knowles, he's got a page over on Facebook you might look up. So Cliven Bundy sues for access. I may have got this all out of order, so if I come back around to somewhere else, we'll do that. But let's go on to some news about the Bundys. Cliven Bundy and his attorney claim in court that Las Vegas authorities aren't providing public records about communications with federal officials in a timely manner. Bundy and attorney Joel Hansen on Monday accused the Clark County District Attorney, Clark County Sheriff, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department of violating the Nevada Public Records Act by not responding in a timely manner to the request for public records. In an attached exhibit, Bundy included a May 19th letter from Hansen and addressed to Clark County District Attorney, Clark County Sheriff Joseph Lombardo. He's a real insider for anybody that's on the know on Vegas politics, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. So Lombardo replaced Gillespie. He was out there 2 years ago, last April, in Bunkerville. I've filmed that look on his face when Cliven Bundy told him how cows eat cabbage. I wish my camera would have picked that up, that look on his face. So continuing, the attorney asked for all records reflecting communications to or from or contact of any kind with your offices and to or from any of the following: Senator Harry Reid, Roy Reid, Federal Judge Gloria Navarro, her husband Brian Rutledge, President Barack Obama, the U.S. Department of Justice, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, or any agent or person acting on their behalf regarding Cliven Bundy, Ammon Bundy, David H. Bundy, and or Melvin Bundy, or any members of the Cliven Bundy family, and or any other of the other defendants in the federal criminal complaint being pursued by the U.S. Department of Justice. Hansen also requested any documents or complaints of any kind to the Clark County Sheriff Metro by Cliven Bundy or Ammon, David, Melvin, or any other members of the Bundy family after the standoff occurred regarding the behavior of the sheriff or federal officers or private citizens before please excuse me. I probably should have Skyped myself in. I could have hit a cough button here by doing so. During or after the standoff, as well as those referring to any way to Obama, to Senator Reid, Navarro, Lynch, Holder, any one of the others at the U.S. Department of Justice, or any of their agent provocateurs. They're agents, I think it says. Yeah, agents. So Bundy says the defendants have no legal basis for suppressing or denying that information request, and their denial was done willfully and intentionally in bad faith and with callous, reckless, and wanton disregard to the plaintiff's rights, according to the Clark County complaint. While the first page of the Hansen Records request letter is dated the 19th of May, pages 2 and 3 are dated September 19th, and the letters ask for the documents provided within 7 days of this date. If I remember, and I skipped to the bottom, I'll go ahead and read the rest of it. I think there's more information that was relevant here. Bundy is currently jailed and facing 16 federal charges stemming from April 2014 standoff with federal authorities in his ranch near Bunkerville, Nevada, which is located about 80 miles northeast of Las Vegas. His arrest in February on the way to support another standoff at the Harney County Resource Center, listed here as Malhuer National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon. He is among 17 defendants remaining in the case. Two co-defendants, Blaine Cooper, 36, of Humboldt, Arizona, and Jerry DeLemus, 61, of Rochester, New Hampshire, each pleaded guilty in August to 2 felony charges and face up to 72 months in prison. I met those guys out there. Jerry especially is my assertion is, and I say he's a real good man. And people were out there that I know so many that were out there with what's right in their heart. We do find that we went about it in the wrong way, and had we gone back to April 13th of 2014, right here from rlmRadio.xyz, and Behind the Woodshed with Hal and Anthony, we could have found a more better, right way of going about this. So, were it not for circumstances in my life, I was on my way to Oregon, and it may have been that I'd have been sitting there sending out letters instead of talking to you right now. Now, Pete Santilli did get charges dropped there, so I wonder where Jason Patrick, what his status is. Sorry, I don't have that with me right now for you. Also, members of media, Tom Lacavara, Patty Beers, some of the alternate media that was up there that I met, great folks. I met a lot of people up there, just tons and tons of great folks. So, let me continue. Bundy and Hansen want the U.S. District Court in Nevada to order Clark County and Las Vegas officials to conduct a search for any and all records, show they are working on the information request, and have it fulfilled by October 15th. That's my born day, by the way. They also seek attorney's fees and legal costs. Representative, here we go, for Clark County District Attorney could not be reached by phone on Tuesday and did not immediately respond to any emailed request for comment. The Las Vegas Police and Clark County Sheriff do not comment on active complaints against them. Hansen was not immediately available by telephone Tuesday afternoon. That comes from Arnold, a law firm. Source is courthousenews.com. Cliven Bundy sues for continuation. Excuse me. How about a drink? Prosecution shenanigans in Malhuer protest trial for dated September 19, 2016. BLM, DOJ, FBI featured some tags there. Death of the justice. Prosecution shenanigans by Sherry Duval. Court was back in session today for the Malhuer protest trial in Portland. The government continued attempting to discredit the defendants, but was struggling throughout the day. The prosecutors put up a couple of refuge employees to tell how bad it was during and after the protest. The first was Linda Beck, a microbiologist that talked about her normally messy office was very messy when she returned. Mr. Mumford, Ammon's attorney, did get her to admit that the FBI could have made that mess in her office. She discussed her plan to control the carp population in the lake, but the defense forced her to admit how she would prefer to eradicate all the carp. The defense also made the point that the carp were not scheduled to be controlled, parentheses, until April. This was not well received by the prosecution. It was about this time Judge Anna Brown shut down the discussion on the carp issue. The defense attempted to ask the defense attempted to ask Beck if she had ever taken direction from anyone at the BLM, but the judge did not allow those questions. However, she did not lose any work during the 41 days, so it was not a big loss to her. The big refuge employee to testify was was Carla Burnside, an archaeologist and IT support. The most important part of her testimony, including discussing her unwritten agreement with the Paiute tribe to keep all the artifacts locked inside a rat-infested basement for decades. She said the Paiute tribe wanted them stored this way, so this is what the refuge did. It don't add up. Tom Lacavara Stewart shot some video revealing those. You can find him, Resurrect the Republic. You can do a search and find some of his videos. He's on YouTube. Thanks, Tom. Great guy. Okay, so she did admit to having a complete box of documents on the Hammond case, which was the catalyst for the Malhuer protest, directed by Chad Karges, Karges, refuge manager. Burnside collected everything she could about their case and developed a chronology of events for him. Burnside admitted also to not losing work or pay due to Ammon and his friends being at the refuge during during the first part of this year. The prosecutor then moved on to a witness they hoped would seal Ryan Bundy's fate of the theft of cameras. Nicholas Bleuler is a 23-year-old with 3 violent felonies to date. He was on probation last January when he decided to go to the refuge and show his let me try to talk. His support. He testified that he cleared each visit with his probation officer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure your probation officer say, yeah, don't forget your gun safety. Okay. All right. I can't stop laughing to myself. He did clear. Okay. During his last visit, he was with Ryan and others when the cameras were removed from the utility poles outside the refuge. Here's the important part. This fellow incriminated himself in a felony theft, yet Judge Brown allowed him to do this without every question, with the typo there, without ever questioning him about his Fifth Amendment. She never protected him inside her courtroom. The defense asked the guy there, Bleuler, if he had cut a deal with prosecution for his testimony, and the witness said no. When asked if he could still get charged with the crime, he claimed it was still up in the air. So whether the prosecution made a deal with this young man and did not report it to the court as they would be required to, or they totally ignored the Constitution in federal court. The way Judge Brown has run this trial, I would have to guess that she does not lose any sleep over her abuse of the same document she swore an oath to uphold. It is expected that the government will rest its case this week and the defense will begin. Next week, the Reverend Franklin Graham is expected to testify for the defense. But this week, the dog and pony show continues. Let me just pop over here to chat for a second. And I'm going to say howdy. Right there, I'm going to say howdy. I'm not saying it. I'm typing it. Type and talk. Hi, Becky. Glad you made it. I see you in Tillamook. Noticed I posted that we was doing some radio here today. I don't know who else has been around to see it, but so let me go back. Guilty until proven innocent. Ammon and Ryan Bundy try to prove their innocence. That's what you got to do. Admit a government conspiracy to convince the public of their guilt. I think that's what you're supposed to do. This comes from Scott Rohter, R-O-H-T-E-R, June 2016. The time has come to end the occupation of 12 western states by federal government. Thank you, Michael. They've been locked up for months without a trial. Hey, that guy that's suspect in the New York bombing, I think they sent him a bond right away, didn't they? Huh. Hum and D. Give me a minute and I'll go on with this. Let me put some fire on this thing. So they've been locked up for several months. One of them has been in solitary for over a month. That was back in June for refusing, that's Ryan they're talking about, for refusing doctors to remove a bullet lodged in his upper right arm. He got that when they murdered Lavoy Finnegan that day. Ammon and Ryan Bundy are political prisoners. They're being held at the Multnomah County Detention Center in Portland, Oregon, across from the federal courthouse, where they are being tried on charges of conspiracy to impede a federal officer. They're taken into custody not far from the center, the wildlife refuge, which they were occupying in a nationally televised protest. Occupies with the bearing arms. So what? Nobody pointed a gun at nobody. Nobody threatened nobody. We said we're here to talk. Nobody got hurt. It's not like nobody blew up some bombs. Good thing the FBI didn't get a chance to get in there and set some off there with some of their provocateurs. Pulled or fired a bullet even back to April 2014. Yeah, it could have happened. So, Dwight and Stephen Hammond of Oregon, okay, let me back up just a little bit. They were occupying a nationally televised protest over the unjust incarceration of two fellow ranchers, Dwight and Stephen Hammond of Oregon, on terrorism and arson charges. Crazy, people. Crazy. This is what the government does for you. If I don't run out of time, at the end I'm gonna play some of Hal from back. I believe it was back June 17th. Well, we're gonna let Hal tell some about how this government and occupation forces work. You think we're worried about coming under martial law? Well, folks, we are under martial law and have been. They're also protesting the federal wildlife's unconstitutional occupation of 700 million acres of land in 12 western states for more than 150 years. The Bundys are leading an effort to try to change the federal government's public land management policies, which were written in 1976 when Congress passed the Federal Land Policy Management Act. Friend and fellow rancher Lavoy Finnegan was shot. I camped on the land that he run cattle land up in the Arizona Strip, unbeknownst to me at the time, in 2011. I had a pretty good little camp there, not far from St. George. Prettiest little city I ever been to. Cleanest. Real nice folks there. Shout out to those in Ward 5 and those folks that I visited while there. So let me catch up. Shot in the back 3 times, Lavoy was, by 2 Oregon State police officers for his efforts to help the Hammonds and support the Bundys. The police officers claimed that they fired their weapons in self-defense. Lavoy's murder has been described by police investigation as justified use of deadly force. In reality, the police investigations were little more than a whitewash. The national rebellion over the federal government's public land use policies didn't just begin with the occupation of the Malhuer National Wildlife Refuge, and it isn't going to end with the arrest or even the conviction of Ammon and Ryan on the federal charges stemming from their month-long protest in Harney County. The controversy surrounding the federal government's admission on America's public land has been going on since the 1980s, when the Sagebrush Rebellion was launched. Won't be settled in an Oregon courtroom during the Bundy trial. Can only be addressed by Congress. In fact, the subject might not even come up during their trial, since the only issues really at stake is the refusal to leave the refuge. The defendants claim that they were never given a direct order in writing from the appropriate authorities to leave the refuge, and they would have welcomed such an order because it would have given them the opportunity to challenge the validity of the order in court, but they never got one. So what led the Bundys to come to Oregon in the first place? What led them to the occupation, to occupy this remote strip of desert land? Knowing this is the key to understanding the unjust nature of the government's indictment against them. If a rancher's grievance against the Bureau of Land Management are even mentioned during the trial, they will probably be tossed out of court as quickly as they are brought up. See, it's like it don't matter about justice. It's the letter of the law, or the letter of the legal, should I say. That's what happens there. So, anyways, yeah. But tossed out by the federal magistrates who was by the magistrate, who was appointed by the federal government to preside over their trials. What jurisdiction or what article or court are they in here? What jurisdiction? Administrative. So there's been some past lessons from Hal on that, and I've covered them. So without the top of my head where those are, they're out there. What prompted the defendants to leave their homes and families in Nevada, Arizona, and Idaho to meet at the center there near the little town of Burns? It's a long and convoluted story, says he. Their original purpose was to support 2 Oregon ranchers who were justly incarcerated for arson under the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act. The defendants wanted to start a national discussion about the federal government's mismanagement, that is, of America's public lands. Now, let me interject. Them ranchers, Clive and Bundy being the last rancher standing in Clark County, Nevada, they were managed right out of business. So, I'm telling you, it's cronyism. It's just bring it all to prop up this fiat money, the Federal Reserve notes, debts we carry as money. So it's a bogus charge to begin with, but it was a crime for which they had already served their time, talking about the Hammonds in this Effective Death Penalty Act. And so they were sent back to prison. The defendants viewed the resentencing of the Hammonds to 5 more years by the Obama Justice Department as a violation of their civil rights under the Fifth Amendment, which states, "Nor shall any man be put in jeopardy of life or limb." The reincarnation of the Hammonds for a second time after they had served their original sentence was a clear violation of that Constitution, and a clear-cut example of federal government's unconstitutional method of managing public lands and harassing Western ranchers. The Bundys saw the Hammonds' plight as an opportunity to focus national attention on the plight of Western ranchers. What they didn't take into consideration is that most Americans live in big cities, and they don't understand nor care about the plight of Western ranchers. The Bundys came to Oregon to support Dwight and Stephen Hammond and to call attention to the occupation of over 700 million acres of land in 12 western states by a federal bureaucracy that is totally and completely out of control. The defendants managed to occupy the headlines for almost a month by occupying a deserted desert. Yeah, they'll have it all in desert, and sagebrush are growing, no tortoises because there ain't no cows to browse. That's what they'll have. That's what they're after, and then they'll take the wealth that's left above and below the ground and sell it off. Yeah. So they occupied this place in the middle of winter when no federal employees were there, an act for which they are now paying dearly. Indeed. Let me ask you a question, says the writer. What is a bigger crime? Is it worse to occupy a deserted wildlife refuge for a month in the middle of winter, or to occupy 700 million acres of land in 12 western states for more than 150 years? All wealth comes from the land, but fully 1/2 of all the land west of the Rocky Mountains is controlled and administrated by the federal government. That explains why most of the counties in the western states are struggling to meet their budgets and to provide basic government services like public schools, police, and fire protection. All the federally controlled lands remain off the tax rolls, and the payments in lieu of taxes which western counties receive from federal government, does not nearly compensate them for the losses in revenue arriving from not having these lands on the tax rolls. It does not enable local government to become self-supporting. On the contrary, it keeps local government dependent on Washington. County government frequently is not able to fund basic government services. You can go on down there. I'll skip a little bit. Cliven Bundy owns a ranch in Nevada, and he and his son Ryan raise cows. They own grazing rights on adjacent land, which is administered by federal government. Their right to use this land is being adversely impacted by the federal government's public land use policies. The Bundys exercise their right to petition the government for a redress of government only after all their efforts failed. They look for another means to advance their cause. In 2015, they drafted legislation in the Nevada legislature regarding the administration of state land by the federal government. But all their efforts in search of a solution to their problem failed. That led them to Oregon to occupy the Malhuer National Wildlife Refuge. They tried to work within the system without openly defying it, even while the government continued to evade the Constitution. But all their efforts under law got them nowhere. They're now political prisoners in the county jail in Portland, Oregon, where they have been convicted without trial. Well, I guess in a way they have, aren't they? They're being held without bail before they have been found guilty of committing a crime. They have been denigrated in the press for standing up to the federal government's flagrant violations of the Constitution. All our rights are not enumerated in the Constitution, but all the federal government's powers are definitely enumerated in the Constitution, and there is no power given to the federal to maintain control over such vast amounts of state line. It's a sad day when 2 Oregon State police officers shot an innocent man in the back just for believing in the Constitution. This was the day that I realized that something much bigger than Lavoy Finnegans had died in my country. Honor, integrity, and respect for the Constitution have all ceased to exist too. Here's a little lesson in history, and is what I'm going to do is allow you to look at that for yourself. And as I scroll down, I'll bring you this link. Stand by, and I'll take a moment here. There's some history. BigThink.com. Strange maps. Federal lands in the U.S. Just how much land does the federal government own? Hey, A-Trax, what's up, dude? So you ready for some radio tonight? Me and Trax. And tonight will not be PG, by the way. So just a warning on that for listeners now. So here's an overreaction and over-exaggeration. First weeks in a nutshell. Oregon standoff trial. Observations and commentary by Todd McFarland, September 18th, 2016. With government politics, Oregon standoff, Todd McFarland, Bundy, federal, Oregon standoff, range fire, trial, tagged. And I know I don't want to read all this. Give me a minute here, and I'll catch up. Kind of funny. But he's saying he's been doing some videos. And so he's ready for a break from the video production, and by writing the recap consistent with his pattern, he can then spend the next several days tweaking it. I wasn't sure if he was talking about tweeting or not, but twerking it, yeah. Edit. Thank you to my brother for that advice. And so I'm way far away from ready to publish this that I've got going here. as a WordPress or a note even. Okay. Based on the first week, he says, if I had to summarize the government's case at this point in just 2 words, the word would be overreaction, over-exaggeration. And it's the government's evidence we're talking about here. The government is presenting its case in chief. Some of the defendants have been accused of exaggeration, but we're still weeks away from having a chance to see their evidence and hear what they have to say. This is the government's case, the government's evidence. Case in point, judicial security trial. Now, this is, if I remember, this is a phrase that he coined, standoff pageant, from when he'd previously used standoff pageantry, and there's something else down the way with somebody else, and he put them all together. I forget. Let me see. I want to find where I want to start at. And it's a long article, so not sure. But he talks about this guy that had been arrested for playing the violin in the nude, and he missed it. But anyways, I'll drop the article here. Y'all can catch that up. Let's see. Let me just start here. August 31st, 2016. Rainfire posted the last part of a series of articles about realities in the West that nobody wants to talk about, called Welcome to the New Normal, a land of labels, distortions, misinformation, and guilt by association. It was a piece back in May to address, at least in part, what's going on with the Stanton Gleave and the feeding frenzy of misinformation surrounding him and his family. At this point, he's going to add another word to the whole description, and that should have been included in the outset. Overreaction. All right. The problem is few people seem to be able to distinguish between what is real and what isn't. But distortions fueled by social media seem to be the order of the day on all sides. Boy, ain't that right. During the first week of trial, both Chad, the Malhuer Wildlife Refuge Manager, and Jeff Ross, BLM Field Officer Manager, testified from the minute Ammon and Ryan arrived. Oh, I think that's from the minute. Yeah, I'm sorry. Testified from the minute that Ammon and Ryan arrived in Harney County. Federal officers, officials, and law enforcement were on high alert. In addition to receiving a continuous flow of intel from law enforcement, they were both actively monitoring social media. Both they and Sheriff Dave Ward all testified that they couldn't put their finger on any actual threats, but they all said that just the mere thought or mention of Bunkerville and some of the people who had been there, in Sheriff Ward's words, scared the hell out of them. Fed additional intel by the FBI. He's acting mostly entirely on an overreaction and emotional feelings and fears instead of real facts. Likewise, these supervisors decided to shut down the BLM office in advance before the occupation ever occurred, based on almost entirely on their own emotional feelings and fears about the fact that a protest rally was planned to support Dwight and Stephen Hammond. At the same time, Rose testified that the occupation was a complete surprise. They thought if something was going to happen, it would be at the BLM offices in Hines, where the only thing that actually happened was a placement of signs saying closed permanently. A special agent for the BLM testified, that is Jason Curry, however, that the signs had been put up for less than an hour on Saturday, January 9th, more than a week after the decisions to close offices had been made, and a full week after the occupation started. But both he and Ross testified that the signs contributed to the decision to keep the office closed. Signs everywhere, signs. Right. At this point, I have to say that none of the testimony really surprised me much. It says I live in Millard County, Utah, the better part of 1,000 miles. It ain't 1,000 miles from Utah to. I'm gonna skip it. That don't look right to me. Anyways, so it's not 1,000 miles. I must have read something wrong there. The problem is few people seem to be able to distinguish between what was real and what isn't, right? Back to my point, he says the point is few people have been able to distinguish. There's some YouTube there. The government's case keeps repeating itself, it seems to me. There's talking about the naked violin player. And he has already provided his candid assessment of Judge Brown's handling of the case. On the other side of the table, make no mistake, there were some really good opening statements. So somebody here did a particular good job, but in the opening statement, Ryan Bundy did a very effective job communicating his view of the case as well. When it comes to objections, he probably actually doing a better job than any of the defense attorneys. This should be both troubling and highly disconcerting for those attorneys. For a layperson with no formal legal education, law training, and minimal experience, Ryan is holding his own fairly well, which unfortunately doesn't say much for defense counsel in the case. And it's time for them to think about that, I guess so. Easy to sit back and play armchair quarterback, says he. But he does agree with Mike Arnold that the case, that the assigned federal public defense attorney seemed very capable of making good arguments. But there's a whole lot more to try in a case than making good arguments. Yeah. Because they're not care one bit about justice. Just us. Or them, I mean. They're lacking... They are arguably lacking when it comes to basic trial skills is cross-examination and making objections. Arnold suggested this is probably due to the fact that they spend most of their time on plea deals, making arguments at sentencing instead of actually trying cases. And it shows. Although Lisa Maxfield has had some effective cross-examination for the most part, and I'm sorry, I know this is going to... step on some toes, but they seem more like potted plants sitting there. Thank you, Mike. Okay, there they are. It's a nice little picture of some potted plants with, I guess those are eyes. Funny. I'm gonna go on down. I've about run through. Where's my link at on that? So I can copy that and bring it over to you. There it is. That's Norton.com. Oh, wait a minute. I might have the wrong place. Well, I'll worry about that later. Okay. Let me move on. And tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause this recording and let's just play something out of the blue. And I'll come back. So I'm pausing now and I'll be right back. Hold on just a minute. Here we go. Okay, now we're back. So, continuing. The American Dream, a hell of a scam. And so here's where I didn't catch up to myself. Some of this may be a little bit out of order. And I'm going to be adding in a little bit from some folks from both UCY.TV chat and from rlmRadio.xyz, and I'll leave your name out. But some of y'all may recognize some of your quotes. The American Dream, a hell of a scam. Any evil that they can conjure up in their megalomaniacal minds. Indeed. Thank you. Rise of the military-industrial complex. An EMF guide, each frequency probably unlocks new manipulations of different molecular processes. That's a study that's going to be pretty hard for me to put in place, but from Jules, she's covering that all very, very well. For me to be able to put it in words is almost maybe beyond my scope, but Jules is doing a wonderful job every morning before the first cup on UCY.tv. So rise of the military-industrial complex, predictive programming, and setting public opinion. What is meant to keep us safe does just the opposite. And what I have queued up from Hal is going to come in and touch this. And by the way, Lonnie, and I think, was it Dana, your guest then? It's pronounced Illinois. There's no noise in Illinois. I just had to make that side note. But some people are making some noise talking about nuclear. So Lonnie was on this morning. She follows Jules Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 11 Eastern Time, a.m. So looking at this, not to feed into it or bolster its effect on us, we need to look at this information and know what we are up against. We being opposed to this tech being used on us, parentheses, so we can make solutions. Nip it before it gets us, like we should have done with nuclear. But most of us were asleep, unaware, or unborn. Thank you for that from our chatter at UCY. That was Wednesday, Maddie. Shirley, you jest. No, I'm not jesting. Ring the bell. So, hints and clues of who this may be that said this. Nuclear seems like such a violation of the rights of future generations, but I guess we have no obligations to protect the generations we have. Once more, those of the future. She uses this, oh no, I do. I use the allegory of zombieism as a general analysis of population at large. A major kill-off is now possible at any given moment with the feed system of today. Brains. Yeah. I said that. As a plagiarized, paraphrased plagiarist. I do anyways. Yeah, there's a lot of ways that we are being killed off. Wealth from hard work. Buddy had a movie going the other day. Horrible Bosses 2. Now, this is a message to Ron Stevens from July the 3rd. Message to Ron Stevens from Hal on the subject of avoidance and his guest. That was Game On with Ron Stevens, July the 3rd, 2016. Available at UCY TV user. Playlist Game On with Game On with Ron Stevens. The message to Ron you can find on Real Liberty Media, YouTube, also rlmRadio.xyz, behind the Woodshed Blogcaster, July 3rd, 2016. I gave some crib notes here. The first half hour has to do with no remedy because of the system, subject matter jurisdiction, caution, separate reality, habit of the beast will beat you down, obligations and duties, granted right, egress and ingress, right to do, use of the highway, not motor vehicle code, power and separation of the states and jurisdiction, organized criminal syndicate, commerce, fiduciary duty, promotion, selling. Looking back, we see how it is, the system. How it is and will come against us. Cause and effect, extrajudicial, law of the land and disposable, farm to market is not commerce, avoidance, infractions. And for some reason I typed this twice. Looking back, we see how it is and how it will come against us. Cause and effects, extrajudicial, law of the land and disposable, farm to market, and Independence Day continued. A private way to get along, weights and measures, central banking, hyperinflation, fiat, collapse, Tesla Tech, where's the funding, trunk lies, the fix is in, Ponzi, perhaps. Further discussed is the Bill of 1953, the movie They Live, The Matrix is not a movie as well, driving the monetary system, an ideology that needs no place to exist. Hellfire, a missile for you. Computer privacy, a judge says nope. Reflexive opinion, there are people in seats of decision that mean you harm. Global imposition, face-to-face, equal in law, we, not they. Bar it or bear it, the Bar Association as the elite, raise or rise against the ignorant masses. And mind-blowing examples of predictive cartoons or predictive programming in cartoons, the conditioning of humans, predictive programming in movies. These are some notes that I did not finish that are at the bottom here, but I have something else and I'm going to in a separate spot. And here's one for you, 5 reasons why predictive program is psychologically implausible. I read all that, and I think you're full of propane. Here's the 420 report, way late. If you smoke too many dabs, I hear it'll fry you. It's cracked with propane. So, buddy of mine fixed an electric vape pen, and it's perfect. Push and smoke a little dab will do you. It's the at 111 Central, the 420 report. Okay. We should be too big to take offense and too noble to give it. Abraham Lincoln. Are you too easily offended? I said easily. I'm very offended by the non-offended, and that says me, the paraphrase plagiarist. It is now very common to hear people say, I'd rather be offended by that, or I'm rather offended by that, as if that gives them some certain rights. It's actually nothing more than a whine. I find that offensive. It has no meaning. It has no purpose. It has no reason to be respected as a phrase. I'm offended by that. Well, so effing what? Says Stephen Fry. Thank you, Java Doctor. I believe that was Java Doctor that I included with one of his posts from the effing site, Freedoms Network. Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Grimner. Along with that, psychologists explain why most people refuse to question the official version of 9/11. Trauma-based mind control works, doesn't it? Many people respond to these truths in a very deep way. Some have a visceral reaction, like they've been punched in the stomach. They begin to accept the possibility that the government was involved in something like opening Pandora's box. If you open the lid and peek in a little bit, it's going to challenge some of your fundamental beliefs about the world. That comes from Robert Hopper, PhD, clinical psychologist, and that's from Real Liberty Media. Psychologist explain 9/11. Thank you, Grimner, for posting that. I'm going to copy it for our listeners that are live in chat and put it right here. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Becky. I am. Okay, where was I? I think I've come to the end of this here. I certainly have. So now I'm going over here to these other notes that I got. And I'm going to be quoting some, probably anonymously. I might throw some acclimates there to some of y'all. You want morals? First you learn some virtues. I'm going to the top here. So, I just copied this as we was chatting. So if it doesn't make sense, you can blame me. As I just read it. There were several treaties. Now this goes to, this will be preemptive for next week, part 2, when we get into the Indians. We've talked about cowboys at the beginning of the broadcast. We'll go to some history, perhaps his story or their story, somebody's story about the Indians. But there were several treaties prior to the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 as well. There was land change in the res area at the crossing site. This has to do with the Oregon access from about 1950, I think. These may be some of my leftover notes that I added here somehow. But the Sioux need to bring the U.S. to World Court and sue for peace. Yeah, these are last week's. Let me see here. We need to bring law to legal, hold to account those that set against the law. The impact needs a lot of force from many fronts, says I. I think they were led astray up there in this infiltration and redirect, and Amy Goodman painting a dozer with crap. The problem is when working with the government legal or law system is the judge that interprets the contracts and codes works for them, and they will interpret and modify the meaning of the words to suit their desired outcome. You recognize those words? Or my great Grimner, thank you. And that was, I think, for Hal. The problem, let's see. So, were to me and mine, I'd go for making them use some overkill on the river crossing construction. That was me talking about that. Trust no one has quit. So, hey, look, I just copied this and sorry, I didn't edit. Edit. Right don't make right. You see that from Bunkerville to Burns. Says I. Grimner says exactly. Those that are right almost always get crushed by those with the might. Kate, thank you. Didn't the government do the right thing with the Keystone and use the legal system? I don't know. Did they? I don't know. I didn't really look at any of this until Kira laid down the challenge to bring this out, and she was on this from early on. And join, don't join in. It's a con, says I. Someone, says it avoids all law enforcement. That's the best. I don't. I'm in your face. So I say Hal has the bearing on what he speaks. I've got hindsight 2020 in that had the Bundys, and I said this earlier, and the Hammonds, the Sugar Pine Mine, and so on. Hal is shown to see right to it from the start. Lavoie would still be alive. There wouldn't be no one in jail and on trial right now. And I said to Kate, I am in their face. But it's still country here, and I know most of the cops, not to mention criminals and common folks in between. So Hal's lessons help me in this approach. And I have tagged it 1 hour and 4 minutes. So that was during Hal's show last week that these notes come from. 1 hour and 4 minutes in. Let's see. So I do get a little leeway to poke him in the belly, and that's exactly what I did. A buddy of mine, he's chief investigator, a friend of mine. I've known him for several years. We got at least we got locals for the most part here, law enforcement. So we have a little better chance of communicating. So I get to get away with walking up to a cop and poking him in the belly, literally. And then tell them my next video that on YouTube for my next cop encounter is going to be how to disarm and shoot a cop. That put a funny look on his face. So, not shoot to kill or not to take his gun away, but to put him at ease and film them, shoot him with a camera. So, stand down, stand down, stand down order. Don't come for me. Stand down, fellers. Where am I at? Grams is saying cool. Does anyone have any notes I can copy from? Grams, here's the notes. Here's the notes you were asking for. I'm scrolling. And I said, you think you're getting oil? Well, you're getting a shaft. Damage to protective coating to the pipe and coercion sets in quick. That was responding to Hal talking about what I was talking about the week before, last week. Okay, so Grimner tells Kate that the Department of State denied the permit for the Keystone XL, and he said that he doesn't know how that works via legal. Sounds like a unilateral decision. Most likely some political motives, not for doing what's not right to benefit somewhere else. Exactly. Stalking horse set up for a takedown. Look up the definition. Somebody in chat do a dick for stalking horse. Exclamation point DICT. See what that comes up with. And let's see here. Sorry. Grimner says he doesn't see how the State Department should have a say in that. Seems more like a Department of the Interior area. And Kate says thought the president got the credit, though. Probably so. Guess it was a Canadian request. Department of State comes into play. The Missouri River. Missouri River. And the XL was a duplicate pipeline anyways. Thank you, Grimner. Not so much cost prohibitive as it is more expedient, says Grams. The river is adjacent. That comes from Hal. Notes from Hal. And Grimner says the Gulf region is a mess. It is. Must not be any rivers around those. This is a question mark. This one has Indians. That's the difference. It's hard to give an F about one more. I would personally think that fracking would be a bigger issue than the pipeline. Should be. That's destroying the water table and aquifers for certain. Fracking is all over. Agreed, Kate. So many areas of concern that it has to cover all of them. That's how your society is messed up. Thank you, Grams. And somebody's given up swimming in natural lakes and rivers a long time ago. Okay. Rome's, happy birthday, last 9/11. By the way, trust no one. I gave up crude on oil pipelines and playing in and breathing crude oil. He says, I used to pay good back in the 80s. And most farmers made a lot of farmers semi-rich. Yeah, that's right. Here, too, in the natural gas realms. Thanks. Wow. So interesting, says Grimner, that last Sunday, that the Dakota Access Pipeline, the newest story, is the 12th. So last Saturday, from last Saturday, meaning those arrests didn't happen? Huh. If it's not reported, it didn't happen. I said that just now. How much more do I got here, and do I have more relevance here? There is some. Where am I at? See, I'm coming up about to 5 minutes left before I want to play out. Before I want to play out hell. And so I made the comment, am I too white to say Indian? Being that, PC and all, dang it. But I was born in Oklahoma, and any Indian will tell you us white boys are part Cherokee. No worries, pale face. Says Grimner. All right. And I've about brought it all to conclusion here for this week, except for bringing the words. Thank you for the dick there, Grimner. Stalking horse. Someone or something whose role is to become the focal point for or the initiator of a debate. That's right. I hope I washed my hands after touching this wine. I did, pig. Okay, so I'm back in chat, 25. And I've got 30 minutes from now. So I guess we'll be a little short of 2 hours, but it's all the time. It's all done. I'm unplugging my mic. I'll come back in at the end and say howdy. So here's some lessons from Hal. And thank you very much, Hal Anthony, Behind the Woodshed, broadcasting Sundays, 2 p.m. Central Time, rlmRadio.com. That's rlmRadio.xyz, simulcasting at ucy.tv. Thanks. And I'm unplugging and bling.
Let me ask you a different way. If they are proud and humbled, as the United States, a little district over there in Washington, D.C., have they not just abdicated and said they were not capable to protect their citizens as a consequence? You just have the fuel there, the list of problems that they have just developed for themselves, the cause which should have them thrown out of their position, impeached or criminally charged. See, it's what I told you a long time ago with when they made Battlefield America. The government admitted it just committed treason. Its duty was to not allow that to happen. U.S. approves United Nations use of military force on American soil. How do you feel about that, folks? How do you feel your government can't even protect you, that it has to rely on the UN? Against you! Remember all this nonsense is like this gender inequality nonsense. That becomes a civilian problem, becomes a threat against civilians. All these little things they've been developing. Now the UN, you think you're going to have some military troops come in and not want to shoot Americans? We've been talking about this since the 90s. No, they're going to have some international body come in. They don't care about not shooting you, raping you, murdering you, stealing from you, using you as slave. They don't care. Where's the accountability on top of that? Look at what's not happening, folks, around all this. Look at the lack of safeguards that have not been produced, that the United States, Samantha Powers, was humbled and proud to support. There's really a big disconnect in this country. I don't even know if I fully appreciate how big the disconnect is, because I started thinking, what else do I don't know about how wrong this is? This is just simply wrong, but look at where all the objective basis we can point to, that if we didn't have that, we would have no clue about it. And over time, it's been proven, and I can see it in my time, they make you forget. You lose your memory. I'm one of the last few people that understands the mining law, because I turned around at the right time and happened to see we're about to forget that. Me and a few people I work with are the last memory of how the mining law really is supposed to work. I'm not saying that to aggrandize myself. It's the fact. It's the truth. 10 years ago, we were about to lose it. No one understood it. The government had beat out of the people, the miners, the knowledge of the law, so they could continue to bureaucratically plunder them, steal their stuff, put them in jail. They changed the law to a policy, and that policy is changeable to the military whim, the control. The law is important because it's written down, and it makes a place where we can all point to that says that was the standard, not what you're doing. What you're doing is a crime. And you're lucky if we don't go to war crime here, as we were talking in the UCY chat on Ron Stevens' broadcast. And I put some things in the chat that he picked up on, but I didn't say that they were. I didn't present them as a discussion. I was really answering how. My comments were in the chat to answer how you would respond to these people that are usurping your rights and property, and making claims and limiting the language to what they speak. You can identify them as a foreigner, actually, and you can. That's I kind of speak in an odd. I realize I speak in an odd way. I gave an answer, not a discussion. They prove they're a foreigner when they speak this way. They prove that you're not in that. That's a defense. That's an avoidance. You take that fact and make an avoidance. Then you put them in the wrong side and show how they had no right to come into your area, into your jurisdiction, or to show how they had. So at that point, I realized when I typed it in the response, I realized what I'm telling is an answer, which is really the foundational place that you have to act from. In other words, the words were not the act. What you're focused on is identifying when they speak like all this nonsense, when they do things that are outside the scope of a limitation. These people are foreigners. You can address them on that, and you can ask them, what is your authority to act that way, to say that? What money was paid to you to make that position under the Constitution? That's what we call the show cause. Show cause how you've complied and comported with the law by your action to do that. Doesn't it, on top of it, doesn't it take a treaty? What was the official record that the United States itself was proud? It's an inanimate object on top of that. What are they doing in our mind when they speak this way? They personalize. I can't use that word. I can't use humanize. They peopleize these legal entities, like the robots. They peopleize them. They make them like they have emotions, and they're just machines that are taking commands. If you don't think that I've been talking about the breaking down of borders and why border cell jurisdictions are important, how you cross over with them, how it's illegal to come across a jurisdiction to get you. I mean, how long have we been told up until these multi-jurisdictional agreements that one sheriff couldn't go to the next county? I mean, even I think the Lavoy-Finicum thing over there, the Harney County thing, was the sheriffs were keeping separate. Cell walls are important. Jurisdictions are important. You've got to keep purity. Otherwise, chaos becomes, and those people that without the objective basis of the law, the set known response and what to expect in the world is destroyed. And here we have a breaking down. I've been talking to you about like the border. The UN breaks down everything without borders. Doctors without borders. Water without borders. Animals, migration without borders. They want to destroy your jurisdictional purity. Here's another thing the United States just did. Not only do they agree that the UN peacekeeping force can come in and protect you all civilians in a military consequence, they're also going to now allow proposing actually to allow foreign officials to serve warrants on internet firms. Where does that stop, folks? That foreign officials can serve a warrant on you. Boy, wouldn't Erdogan love that power? And the United States is proposing to allow it. Where do they get that right? See, the United States is supposed to be that intermediary. It's not supposed to determine that it's not going to be there to be the intermediary. It's no different than an entry agent. You come to the entry agent, then that entry agent then goes to the company. You don't let the foreign party go all the way directly to the agent, to the party. Where's your protection? Where's your expectation? This only relates to internet firms. It won't stop there, folks. Where do the United States have to allow a right to propose to allow a foreign official to serve a warrant? Remember, this is consistent. Well, I'm going to say that they don't. Except, let me remind you, I told you way back in, I think it was 2014, NDAA. And right before that, we were talking about Interpol was given the right to do rendition. Remember, I told you this was a serious, serious problem. I don't doubt that this is tied to that as well. That a foreign official can use Interpol to come and get you and pull you into their jurisdiction. And part of it was the danger of the use of the internet, wasn't it? Now they can serve warrants. Where's your border? Where's your law, folks? Is this universal law coming in? It's all reflexive, and it's all controlled by whom? The Bar Association, International Bar Association, IBAnet.org, IBAnet.org. Go look it up. It's it's also the advisor to the Holy See. This trade union, criminal justice is good business, folks. Now it's global, and it's got no borders to protect it and stop it. The United States proposes allowing foreign officials to serve warrants on internet firms. I don't know what more to say. That should just be a heart stopper. Oh, I'm not an internet firm. Who do I care? They get you through that there, folks. And it's not going to stop at internet. Just like the Interpol didn't stop at the internet, doesn't stop at the warrant, doesn't stop. It just renditions you wherever they want to put you. This is all happening right underneath our nose, folks. So all this other nonsense, this is happening. And there's a phone call that can be made here. There's a letter that can be written. There's show causes to find out how treason has not been committed in the interference with the judiciary here, notwithstanding its corruption. The allowance of foreign forces on our soil. What about how y'all feeling about that, you vets? Where you at? What'd you go fight for? What have you fought for? What was that inspiration in you? You think it's regarded here in these people? No, they're like Erdogan. They don't care. It's a cockistocracy, folks. The excrement rises to the top, and you pay for it. Whether you're silent or whether you're not, you're going to pay for it. But if in silence, you got no excuse, and you're going to pay for it. Who's the player of the United States? It's bully and brute now allowing it to Washington, D.C., allowing the breaking down of jurisdictions. Well, apparently another government, another jurisdiction, the same one that was getting out of the EU, I told you partly why. The UK Parliament report finds the U.S. allies are covertly funding ISIS. The United States is allies, it's accessory to the crime. Another story that all these nations are in together. If you think that there's going to be some kind of protection in the global military governanny that they're going to put all over you on a military condition, give it up, and you better turn your attention to it somewhere. The Parliament report finds the allies are covertly funding is us, I've called it. Is Israel, United States as well. Zio West. We hear nothing from it. We just hear that it happens. These are all the players. You think someone that's going to allow your foreign firms that are allowing what? As soon as they recognize these all of a sudden that foreign official wants to make a mess out of things, and now you can serve a warrant in your town? On your internet provider? Get Interpol to rendition you to their courts? I hope you see it's the EU of the globe happening here. And you don't get a choice, just like most all the people didn't get a choice except Brexit. They got a choice. And I said, but it doesn't end there. Even when they give you the choice, first of all, you knew the imposition was a threat. You didn't speak about that threat, did you? But then you said you didn't want to do it, and then the politics comes in and says, well, maybe a little bit. And then you don't find out there's another layer to the game that they needed you out. You needed to go Brexit. They get your buy-in so they can do something more dastardly to you. We're so out of the game loop, folks, it's really kind of scary. UK Parliament reports finding U.S. allies are covertly funding ISIS. We're accessory criminals, folks. We're accessory terrorists. If I didn't already call it, the United States is committing the war of terror. There's nothing here that's new, I guess, under the sun, and yet it's all new in how we can approach it. The evidence it provides to us that just is more, what should I say, the shame on us for not utilizing it as I'm suggesting you have the right, authority, and duty and obligation to do so. It's right here handed to us if we would just go use it. The UK Parliament finds that the allies are in ISIS. That makes the United States an accessory. That makes the UK an accessory. That makes France an accessory to being a terrorism. The terrorists, folks. But I've already told you that the governments are the only ones that can be the terrorists. That's the definition of terrorism. Not the one that the terrorists have made, but the one that actually is the objective definition of the word. Not the term, the word. Theirs is a term. Their definition of terrorism is a term. Ours are words out of dictionaries. So we have all this knowledge coming to us. We have the frauds exposed. We have the players outed. They all seem to continue. And the problem we have is if we keep even looking at all that we start even learning this knowledge, we don't understand the ramifications. We don't take it to the next level to consider what it might mean. When you have a fraud exposed, what does that mean? A lot of times it just continues. But that's not even what I'm talking about. Not only does it mean that you didn't respond and they continued the crime, what does it mean in the context of being able to understand the future to not do it again? To prepare for the thing you're not understanding may come to slap you upside the face, upside the head, because you didn't see that it might come from that direction, because you were told and you agreed with people that were lying to you this entire time. It becomes a narrowing field of help to come to you, and if you're not prepared, the response, the natural response, comes in such a great way that you're not going to survive on your own. And so this creates another style of interdependence that they want you on. The only thing I can see the difference is the interdependence of cause, and hopefully you have the right one. Otherwise, you're going to be surprised by what happens. Let me go back. So the UK has found, the UK hasn't done their climate change. The United States is not funding climate change, but it's all been global warming. And so this fraud has been upon us. We now think it's all gone, and yet there's more evidence. I was telling you when I was being brought up, the big problem was it was going to go, and they had scientific studies on this, that we're going to go to, winter. The global ice age. Crippled Atlantic currents triggered ice age climate change. So here we got the government telling us that there was a fraud that they've been supporting, and they're not going to support it to the most extent anymore. But that doesn't stop the natural thing that we might turn our gaze away from now. That I've been telling you, like I said, if we go chemtrails, and if they are actually doing it, even if they're not, if they're just stuff in the now all of a sudden in the contrails, that we call chemtrails, this debris that comes out, these aerosols, that would cause and trigger an acceleration of an event that's known to be going into a colder segment. They say the triggering mechanism is the Atlantic currents. They say that claim that was the cause of climate change, so-called. So if you focus on the fraud and say, okay, now we know the fraud and the government's not going to buy into it no more, they aren't really not doing that either. You think that fraud is not having an effect. The consequence of that lie, the thing that lie was covering, is not going to happen. You're going to be surprised again. And they know that it's all that way, so their plans are in a way that their plans will handle that. Yours will not. So here the UK is coming up with the allies are coming out with outing the allies, and yet it's covering lie. They're lies that cover a truth. That truth still works. We cannot turn our attention. So here in this case, we're talking about the climate change. They're finding out when they do the studies, as I told you a long time ago, 2 networks back, that the oceans are what do a lot of this. It's a big storage engine as well. So if we get the frauds and the farces like China's talking about, we turn our face. Okay, we see the fraud and we don't do something about analyzing what the fraud covered and how to deal with that part. We're going to be surprised. Here, the Atlantic, if it's true, and I think it is, the Atlantic currents trigger ice ages, and the scale of variation is going in that direction. You better be prepared, folks, because the fraud that they've been covering and the one that they say we're not going to promote anymore, you think the danger's over. But there's a natural consequence in the world. The world responds to its environment, not yours, its environment. And I say don't allow Galileo 2.0 to happen to your mind. There is a sun out there, and it causes these long periods of change. Variability, it's always going to be pretty much constant until a major event happens. Like the big meteor, 2016. What do you think? I think I should change my name? Think I get 13% of the votes just by accident, just because I changed my name? You see how fickle this whole thing ends up being? So, I wanted to focus you on, be careful of the fraud. You think like the coup. The coup ended. Do you think that ended Erdogan's thing? No, that's the beginning of the plan now. So the fraud may appear to have gone away. The acknowledgement of the fraud may have happened. You think everyone's all coming to the truth, when in fact, what the fraud covered was the thing you had to be focused on. That was really what was covered, what you weren't paying attention to. So this is a much deeper type of an awareness that you have to gain in these times where they've taken our mind, they've caused us to not have a memory, they've constricted how we respond to whatever we see. We have no tools to respond, and our job is to go regain all of that. Is because there's an underlying truth and reality going on that we have to respond to, is what I've been trying to prepare people for. Whether or not we see it or ever happens to us in our time or whatever, it's still there to happen. That, you know, if you realized, what's a good analogy? I don't even have one. It's just something about when the impending doom seems to be over, you relax. When I'm telling you that these impending dooms that appear to be over are just being uncovered when what you were told was a fraud. When you see the lie, like it's like Trump saying, I'm an anti-trade deal kind of guy, and then his vice president is a trade dealer. The problem's just now starting. We think he's an answer. I don't know why we do that to ourselves. So, underneath the fraud was covering a truth. We have to go find, even though the fraud gets uncovered, we have to go to the truth it was covering to find out whether or not there's something we have to be concerned with. In a way, it's analyzing these dimensions in a way, like the Erdogan or the Brexit or climate change or all this other nonsense that they put on us. You have to go find the foundation that you intend to rest on. If you find that before, that's a good thing. It reduces the workload. But a lot of times we don't. We have to cut through this nonsense. And we do it with an incapacity. We're disabled by all this as well. And so I don't, it's not a judgment to, when I say, it's going to be difficult at some level, because we have a lot to have to work through. A lot of disability to work through, even though we're really not stupid and we're not, dysfunctional. We appear that way because we are completely clueless to realities. The depth of the frauds upon the realities are such that it takes a lot of digging, and that does take a little bit of time. And a lot of people are just having more things in their life to do, and that's another part of that's another part of the plan. Make it impossible for you to dig through it. They have your energy spent on other things. Then all the time they're sapping like parasites. They just sap your energy. Sap, take it away. Where they can, they develop new, like I told you, silent weapons for quiet wars. They have you plugged in, and you plug yourself in, and that happens to be a digital electronic world, and they can do whatever they want. It's all a fraud. It's hiding a truth, and yet we get focused on the fraud. And as I say, you even kind of back out of it now, you have a real problem because now you have nothing to survive in, because there's not a system of support that we were supposed to be keeping or maintaining. We never kept that parallel system. But actually, Erdogan was complaining about this parallel system was what was starting the overthrow. See, so these are concepts that are in the world. It's not that I just make them up here that seems to have to happen. It's just what goes on. So they they cover up the truth. Then you think that the threat goes away, and the real problem was being hidden. Didn't, though. They have you in a condition, in a system that you're totally unaware of, so they can come and they can take advantage again. in moving through the war on terror and what all that's done and how they come on you, how they've been able to manipulate you, and that they'll allow foreign in digital. Remember, the internet comes in and they get to they look at your activity through these ISPs, remember. That's what they're actually focused on when they can come and issue a warrant from a foreigner. When you do business outside and you go to any server outside the country and that happens to be a foreign server, a foreign government, they can come after you through your ISP. But we have a foreigner that does that right in our own place, all through digital technology. Police use DHS's automatic warrant creator to illegally access bank accounts. There's a little reader that the government now has, the police, the military thieves, that they can read any digital account. I've been telling you about your digital accounts. Be very careful. Because of this, actually, Admiralty imposed in the states confiscate forfeiture, they've been able to justify through hardly any criminal or no criminal activity, just the allegation that it thought to have been made, even by somebody else. They can steal your stuff. They now have digitally, they can steal your any credit card, debit card. They get your accounts from a little reader. The military now can take to secure themselves, and you know all this money, this forfeiture money, goes to secure the police, which is the military. That's in the Libra Code. They're not supposed to, but see, there's no law here, right? It's whoever has the biggest gun now, whoever has the biggest, can be the biggest bully and brute, because we didn't keep that law to find out where the excess happened. So, word to the wise, as the government breaks down the jurisdictions, it breaks down all the constraints, it breaks down your law, it breaks down your remedy. You have no response against the plunder. It's now so simple, they now have portable readers, and they can block your under forfeiture. They just take any money you have on a credit card or accounts. They can lock them out. They can take the debit card money from you. You can't even use that. They have every way they're coming to come at you, all under the auspices of the war of terror they're putting on you. And I hear crickets against it. They can also do these things. The banks, we talked about this weeks ago, the banks are integrated enough to give them information. The banks do the red flagging as well. These are all government military agents. How long are you going to continue to operate within this this jurisdiction is going to be, I guess, up to you. I'm not a know-it-all of all the information on how. I just know that this stuff is going on, and we have a lot of people that can address the matter. And there's just not enough in it right now, and I'm hoping for more. But it doesn't matter. Each one of us has to make these decisions. No different in the anonymity sector of the digital. The least amount of you doing a certain thing is easier to find you. When the actual thing is you look like everybody else, you don't have any specialties, and you just go out and you're very much harder to find out. You kind of blend in with the herd. So a lot of people can act as cover. There's another reason why we shouldn't be crickets as well. But as long as we're not the cricket slayer to the cricket within us, these things we've heard, these game players, these psychopaths, these sociopaths, will rule your life, make your life miserable. And it just seems to be that's the way it is. Thank you for tuning in today. Hope something I said today was helpful. Hopefully give you inspired to go grab something, maybe look at the world a little differently, figure out, give credit where credit's due, like Erdogan. I think he might have shown us he's a master game player, or otherwise he's just admitted he's the biggest fool and the luckiest one I've ever seen. But thank you very much, Grimner. Thank you very much for the website space and work you do. freedomsnetwork.com, social network. Maybe sign up there, folks. UCY.TV. Jules, thank you for syndicating, and all y'all. If you would tell people about the broadcast if they can play it, let them know. Maybe interject wherever you see someone saying we need broadcasts or podcasts. Maybe suggest my broadcast or podcast, and submit it to some place, or say, hey, you need to listen to this guy. He's got something to say. If you think I do, the terrestrial broadcasters do appreciate what you do there, and getting the word out. Again, it's just us understanding all the disabilities that we have and working through them nonetheless, and then prevailing at the end of the day. I'll be here next week, tech diffs and nature willing. Take care. Well, that's another lesson. I hope with today's information you can take it to those that misbehave. From behind the woodshed, leaving his mark on the beast, this is Hal Anthony. Till next time, journey with purpose.
So that's what opening up a can of whoop-ass feels like.
Son,
Thanks, Hal.
you just opened a whole case of whoop-ass.
All right, stand by just a minute. I'm trying to kill.
And all y'all,
Oh no! I just hit. Oh no! I just killed myself. Oh, please don't close. I did a double click. It's not closing. Please don't close. Oh no! Oh, it did. Oh crap! I just lost everything. Oh no! Stupid thing. Oh well. That's life. Anyways, I've got the content. That was what I was working off when I killed. So stay tuned. Later, we've got Grammy Mary coming up on Grammy's Rocket Chair. And I don't know if Atrax is going to do the prelude for 2 hours before he and I come on. And we're going to do some radio tonight, filling in for Grimner and Moose Girl. That'll be at 10 o'clock Central Time. Now tomorrow at 9 Central, we've got Walter with the Solvener Report. I did it, Grimner. The Solvener event. Then followed by right here, rlmRadio.xyz. Now Walter's over on UCY.tv. I'll try to get over here and put a redirect at Real Liberty Media and bring y'all over to the chat room at UCY.tv for the Solvener event. Followed by the Dork Table right here, rlmRadio.com. A little later in the day, we will have The Bridge with Kira. And her first hour guest is Linda Blackelk, water protector from Cannonball, North Dakota. The second hour is Dandelion, or Dan DeLion, returntonature.us. Got some really, really great videos on YouTube. You talk about eating the weeds. There's a place to go. It's going to be a really good one. Now next week I want to try to catch up and come to the Indian side of this two-parter. It looks like. Uh-oh. I just done something wrong over here. Check back up for disk space. Okay. Well, let me. There goes another squirrel. Okay. Here I am. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay tuned. I don't know what's coming up here right next, but like I said, later tonight, we've got some live radio for you. Thanks, Kira. Appreciate it. I let her know I was giving her announcement right now. She did. She posted. She reshared there on Facebook from Linda Blackelk on Facebook. And anyway, so look at here. We've come to a full 2 hours of radio in 20 seconds. So I'm gonna be just a little bit slow putting this up. I'm gonna go take me a break. Anyways, thanks y'all. Love and peace. Stopping recording, and I've got you a song to take you out. And thanks, Hal Anthony. I really appreciate all your work and the lessons that you give. Till next week, this is Vince Easley. Love and peace, y'all.